Good morning, everybody. It is 1:15. We hope that some more people will come in at some point, but we're going to start the meeting regardless, okay? Good. So we're going to call the meeting to order first, and the roll call. Nancy, since Lucy is not here, would you mind doing the roll call? Okay. There you go.
Erwin Braverman. Lloyd Kaplan.
Present.
Bitsy Clark.
Here.
Lynn Hawkins. Evelyn Evie Prevalin.
Oh, here's Lucy.
Esther Crystal. Here. Roz Lesker. Here. Phyllis Medvedo. Here. Marjorie Prince.
She's excused.
Okay. Me and Susie Weisinger.
Here. Thank you.
Oh, and Lucy Ambach. It's okay.
Approval of last minutes. Everybody says yay or nay. Approval of last minutes. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report. So the treasurer for the resident council received a budget in January from the administration. And that budget covers the expenses of all of the committees and interest groups. And as each of the entities spend money, they send me an invoice for what they've done. And in return, I send them a check. And the goal is to stay within your budget for each of your committees or interest groups. And I can report that everybody stays in their budget. And at the end of the year, whatever is left over goes toward the budget for the following year. So that we always start off each year with the same, with whatever our stipulated budget is. Sometimes it goes up a little bit, sometimes it may go down a little bit, I suppose. But we have a standard budget and each year so that we start from the top. And I'm happy to report that everyone has been submitting their invoices, and hopefully, I've hoped they've gotten their checks on time. So everything is fine.
Thank you. Mike Bambaros, would you have any comment on this point? Okay. I guess Peggy and Ken certainly do not. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is really something very important that we haven't talked about at all at this point. It involves hospitalization, body system. I will let Erwin, since he's the creator of this program, tell you all about it. So Erwin, please.
So many of you have been in the hospital or in the emergency room, and I'm sure that many of you may have had a wonderful experience, but I'm sure that some of you had a terrible experience. And it's a well-known fact, supported by physicians as well as supported by physicians, that when a patient comes to see them, it is highly desirable that somebody come with them, because you need an extra set of ears. Patients do not absorb everything that you tell them, either about their condition or what their treatment is going to be. And you need another set of ears to listen to what the physician has to say about the diagnosis and treatment, etc. Some patients have actually gone so far as if when they had no one to go with them, would bring a tape recorder with them and ask the physician whether they could tape record his remarks because they otherwise can't remember. Fortunately, most physicians agree to that. Not all, but most do. And so, based on my personal experience, first as a person who took care of patients in an emergency room as well as an inpatient setting, but talk about the emergency room. Having done that for a significant amount of time as an intern, as a resident, and then as a physician at Yale New Haven, and it seemed to me, and then that personal experience of giving and receiving then as a patient, I've always thought that someone should be with you when you're there. And the recent experience that Marvin Weiss had when he was in the hospital in November of last year, the care that he got and the problems that arose that he communicated to us via email made me think that maybe it's time to really try to do something about it for the residents here. So if an emergency arises and you have to go to the emergency room via ambulance, because that's how you would get there from here, if you have a relative nearby or a good friend who can go with you, that's terrific. There's your extra set of ears. But if you're alone and you don't have anyone in the area, it really is somewhat hazardous to your health sometimes if you're going alone. And so I thought that what would be most beneficial for all of us is if we had someone from Whitney Center who would go with you to the emergency room. And that person would be doing two things. One is they would be there for just emotional support and support for physical things like, can I get a glass of water? I'm thirsty. If you had to wait for the nurse or the aide or someone to come by after you press the buzzer for a drink of water, it would take forever, many times. And so there are certain creature comforts that someone who goes with you can really help you with. But then more importantly, it has to do with the medical aspect. You want somebody who can listen to what what the doctor says to you. They can write it down, they can remember. I don't care whatever vehicle they use, there's an extra set of ears who can listen to the diagnosis and listen to the treatment. And that person can also perhaps accompany you to various places as you go for an x-ray, or you go for a CAT scan, or you go to get your blood drawn. That person isn't going to be with you inside, but they're going to be accompanying you to that place. And it really is very comforting to have somebody with you. And so my idea was that we would have somebody from Whitney Center, part of their job description would be to go with you to the emergency room. And that's basically the idea. And then they would come back with a piece of paper that said exactly what was going on. The way this would be implemented, I'm sure there are many different ways in which this could be implemented, but it's the concept that we're proposing first of all. And I've spoken to Mike about this proposal. He was very favorable. He can speak for himself. But the point is that how this is implemented, the nuts and bolts, I'm sure there are many different ways to get there. But the point is to get there. And I think that's all I really need to say about it. I don't think I need to go into the nuts and bolts of how I would do it, but that's immaterial. The point is to have somebody be able to do this for you.
Thank you. Remember that we will have question and answers at the end of the program. So you feel free to ask Erwin at that time any questions you have. We're going to go from the serious to the uplifting and emotional, and we're going to have Bitsy talk about a program that she is putting in place together. And she's very enthusiastic about it, as all of us here are. Bitsy?
Yeah. I like to stand up when I talk. Can you all hear me? Okay, I'll use the microphone. Okay, better? Okay. At the Community Foundation, there is a donor-advised fund in my name that was started by people in order to provide a grant to individual artists. Artists have a very hard time getting money for themselves to do things. So this grant, we raised quite a large amount of money, and we give every year to 2 artists grants of $5,000 each to work on a project that they are doing. This year, one of the winners of this grant is a man named Stephen Driffen, and he has written a play called Death by a Thousand Counts, Requiem for Black and Brown Men. And I saw this play early in April, and it was made up of just 4 men in T-shirts, 4 African-American men, sitting on a bench and actually reading from a set of words in front of them. And I have never in my life in the theater ever had an experience like this where I felt completely involved and touched and part of what they were talking about. It was an incredible experience for me. It started with an idea of boys don't cry. And it started to talk about attitudes in the among many African American people where men feel that you have to stand up for your rights, you have to stand up to your fathers. And these were men who had been boys talking about their fathers and also talking about being fathers themselves. And as I watched this, I said, my God, this is so incredible. This is such an experience. I got to see if I can find a way to bring this to the residents and the staff of Whitney Center. And so I've been working with Maria Frida, and we have been putting together a way in which we could have 2 performances here. And at each performance, we would have residents and we would have staff and have a talk back afterwards and really help us to begin to talk about all of the issues that are related to race relations, to people relations, to getting together and understanding and loving each other. So I'm happy to explain that we are thinking about doing this. I think we're getting close to hopefully having it in April. And I appreciate very much that Susie's given me a chance to talk to you about this thing that means an enormous amount to me, and I think perhaps may mean an enormous amount to all of you. Okay?
Thank you, Lisa, very much.
Another serious question for Mike Rosenberg. The traffic light at Sidewell and Dixwell.
Thank you, Susie. We talked about this at our prep meeting last week. Susie and Lynn brought up to me the issue of the traffic light at Dixwell and Treadwell, and that residents want to do something about that, presumably get an arrow or change the light so it's a little safer. This is not a new issue, but it's certainly risen in consciousness because of the accident that Caitlin Willett had last month. And so I have agreed to take this up with the town. I will follow through on it and bring it to the attention, frankly, of the mayor. We've been trying to get a meeting with the mayor since she went into office, but it's been tough to get her scheduled, but we'll continue to pursue it. I think I have to do some work in understanding who owns the traffic light, whether it's a state or whether if it's a local issue, because there's always this sort of jurisdiction issue that comes up when you talk about roads and traffic control and so on. Once I understand that a little better, I can leverage our Government Affairs Committee to work on the issue. And so I will be pursuing that to the extent I can with the mayor and with the state, if that's what's called for.
Something really important, dining update. Esther?
Hi, everybody. Good news from the Dining Committee, as is always true. I'd like to review with you some information about bringing your wine or alcohol to the various venues. The first one would be Center Stage. Residents can bring their own bottles of wine to Center Stage. Now, before it was frowned upon, and I think I told you that it was frowned upon. Well, that's no longer true, and Thomas wanted everyone to know that people should feel comfortable doing that and not feeling like they're doing something wrong at this point. A server will open the bottle, glasses will be provided, and the wine can be kept cold in this little cooler next to your table, so you can enjoy it throughout your meal. Now, if you want to order wine or alcohol, we have a wine list. At first, it used to be on every table, but now it's not. So you need to ask for the wine list. And that's important because certain house wines and their prices of all the wines and alcohol are on there. But certain wines will have the number of points that you can use for that particular kind of wine. But there are prices for all the alcoholic drinks. In the bistro, residents can bring their own wine. The staff will open the bottle. No wine glasses are provided, but paper cups or plastic cups are available. However, in the pub, residents are asked not to bring their wine and alcoholic beverages for obvious reasons. So now we come to community tables in Center Stage. Now, this is mostly for people that are new here or that have forgotten about what the community table is. The community table is a table that is based on a first come, first serve situation. Each person is served individually. They can come and go as they please. Once they're served, they can get up and go. And that's what it is. You can bring another resident with you at the table, and you may want to stay longer, but the option is really for you to come, have dinner, and leave. So now there are 2 tables at 5 o'clock, each sitting up to 5 people. There is 1 table at 6:30, which will seat up to 6 people. Now, Thomas Hudson mentioned a pop-up dining experience at the last town hall meeting, so I wanted to elaborate a little bit about that. It will be 1 or 2 times a month in the private dining room for seating up to 20 people. This would be a fixed price meal, which means upscale food and upscale prices along with it. It will be several courses, and you would have your own server for the 20 people. The details haven't worked out yet, but we'll follow them and see where it takes us. Thank you. Wine is included in the pop-up dining room, of course.
Thank you, Esther. Floyd, would you speak a little bit about the replacement for the trolley?
At long last, we're about to see a demonstration of a trolley equivalent on the March 23rd. You couldn't hear me, Phil? No. Get a hearing aid. At long last, we're about to get an equivalent to the trolley we used to have, a four-wheeled vehicle on March 23rd for a demonstration.
What time, what place?
That's it for now. It will be on March 23rd from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and it will be on Main Street near the south entrance. More information to come as we get closer. I'm going to ask Nancy now to talk to us about an updated lecture on the Olin Powder Farm.
Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now? Okay, so Mike McBride is going to be giving a talk about the Olin Powder Farm on March 17th, which is tomorrow, right? Thursday at 7:30 in this room. And the lecture is based on a project from the forestry school by two graduate students. And so he has maps and shows the outlay of the whole area that is behind Whitney Center. And then on March 21st, which is the Monday lecture, Gail Cameron and other people from the Hampden Land Conservation Trust are also going to be giving a talk about their involvement with the Olin property. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Lynn is going to talk to us a little bit about the garden.
And I'm going to use the microphone that I know is functioning. This is just to say that if you are interested in gardening, there are plots available, both in the main garden, the one that you walk through on the same level as the parking lot, and in the upper garden, which is how I describe the garden up on the hill to the right as you walk toward the main garden. And this year, we've started to, well, last year really, we started to offer raised boxes for small gardens, the size of a raised box. So if you're interested in gardening, we would be interested in hearing from you. And that's it.
Thanks. A couple requests. The wonderful Whitney Word is looking for volunteers. Dini, do you want to say anything about this?
No, at the moment we're okay, but if someone would like to join, we'd love to have you.
Okay. Okay. And congratulations to Sheila Taub for the great Resident Speaks brochure. We've covered all the topics that we wanted to talk to you about. So now we're going to go to question and answers. Feel free to ask Erwin, Betsy. He will when he's ready.
It's hard to remember the questions. You have to wait till the end. Bitsy, it sounds fantastic, the program, and I'm just hoping that if you get it, one of the performances can be daytime and not nighttime.
Oh, yes, I think we're going to try to have residents at the same time, and we'll try to have one in the daytime and maybe one in the early evening.
Great, because nighttime programs, whatever committee they are very difficult for some residents like me who cannot get down here at night and miss quite a few of the programs. And that's very sad because some of them are excellent. No, a lot of, they aren't. I'm not bringing it up. Erwin, just one question on that excellent idea. I don't know what the rule in the hospital here is. A friend of mine just the other day in Hartford said that she had an issue bringing somebody with her to the hospital who wasn't a relative. I don't know if that rules are still in place with our post-COVID regulations.
Okay, so that, good question. So with COVID, you could not bring somebody in. But since things are relaxing, I don't know, I don't know if they've gotten rid of that rule or not. That's something we have no control over. However, what we do have control over is bringing somebody with you who is not a relative. Because Connecticut State has legislation for a patient bill of rights, and the hospital itself instituted a patient bill of rights which says that you can have a non-relative come with you to be your advocate. And all you have to do is, I think, sign a piece of paper saying you give permission to so-and-so, who is not a relative, to be my second set of ears, to be my advocate. So that's not going to be an issue, since they have it in black and white and on the wall. So I don't know what the current deal is about bringing somebody into the emergency room or the hospital. Under certain circumstances, if they really need to be there, I think they're going to have to let you in. They have to let that person in.
Erwin, I wanted to raise a problem that I see with your suggestion, and that is that I have known two people who spent 24 hours in the emergency room, so anyone who's going to take on that job is going to have to spend a night. I mean, so in other words, I wouldn't do it until they straighten things up at the hospital.
Well, let me put it this way. This would be somebody's job description to do that. And if it's your job description to do that, and you're supposed to be taking care of somebody, then you do that job, whether it's 24 hours or not. And if that becomes really becomes a problem, then maybe somebody will be able to spell you, come in and take over from you. So I don't think that should be a roadblock. I think that's something we can get around. But the point is that when it comes to dealing with somebody's life, we can't do it on the basis of what shift you're on. There has to be some sort of coverage. And I'm sure that if something like that arose, we would figure out how to do it. So I wouldn't worry about that. I'm sure we could, that's not an issue.
I have another one.
So when Dr. Braverman brought this to me the other day, I immediately started thinking about how. I love the concept. I think it is something we need to figure out how we're going to do this. So I very quickly did a rough calculation in my head at the top end. If we were to staff a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week position to do this, so it would be 3 people over 24 hours, so they would be spelled, right, in that scenario. We're talking roughly $320,000 a year in salary and benefits, okay? So that gives us a seal that says, okay, if we had that money, I'd love to spend it that way. So there's something below that that we're going to have to figure out because we don't have those kinds of funds, right? So I think that the how lies in sort of how do we structure it, how do we build such a program, but the concept is something I fully agree with, that we should try to figure out how to do it. And so a lot of the questions about how are going to remain unanswered for a time until I can get my team organized and thinking about this and look at the resources that will be necessary.
I just want to make a comment. Oh, sorry. About Nancy Rosenboom's mention. I've heard people who are interested in the problems in the, whatever's behind us, the water. And as a lawyer, and I didn't do this kind of work, but I heard a lot about it, my advice would be to not get within 100 yards of that question, because invariably, when you get involved with the government about issues like you're going to get involved in, you regret it, because it hardly ever works out favorably.
Back to Irwin. I think it's a great idea, and we're talking about money shortage now. An idea just flashed through my head. Endowment has not lots of, but a few things that when people donate to Whitney Center, they can donate to. Is that something that could be set up, that donations in memory or in honor of someone could go to providing that sort of excellent help for our members?
I don't see why not. It's a way.
So that's something we'll definitely consider, but I can tell you this, that funding a ongoing position from philanthropy is very difficult because you have to keep it up every year. So if it were an endowment, if it were
I didn't mean to be the whole thing.
Right, right. Yeah, if we're endowed, that's certainly a possibility. So we have to look at sort of all options as to how we might figure out how to get this done.
Hey, I'm Greg Seaman. I live on the 6th floor, and a couple weeks ago, I got a card at my door. And it says, "Join us in welcoming David and Paula Kirsch to apartment 2608. I have no idea who produced this. It's a wonderful idea, because I look at the new residents on the board near the mail room, and I can't remember who they are by the time I get back to my apartment. I don't know who got this in addition to me. It's unsigned. The hospitality committee said they didn't do it. I would like to thank whoever produced these and hope they keep doing it. It's a great idea."
I just want to add one more comment to what Craig just said. We've had some residents who, when they look at the pictures of new residents on the bulletin board, they see their name, they see their apartment number, they see their faces, but there's something missing, and we've just added it on. We felt that instant recognition of where people used to live, if they lived in Westport or if they lived in Westchester, or if we could just put that on the onto the photograph, under the phone number, it would trigger, oh, I used to know this person, I used to live there. And this could trigger a conversation with a new resident. So when you look at the photographs going forward, take a look at where they're coming from. You may know them from your previous environment. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
I was just informed, Greg, that the community resource team furnished those cards. And I know they've been working with other parts of the organization on the new move-in process, the move-in experience. So yeah, that's come out of that work. Yeah.
With Peggy's absence, can you report on the incidents, if any, of COVID in our ranks?
With Peggy's absence, can I report on the incidence of COVID in our ranks? 0. Thank God. Yes, staff and residents. Thank God, because we had to force Peggy to take some time off. She's been carrying a big load for the last couple of years, so she's on a well-deserved break.
I just wanted to add to Greg Seaman's comment. I finally figured out about a week ago that I could use my cell phone to take pictures of those photos of new residents. And then because otherwise you wait 6 months till a new, and we don't always remember those photos and the things. So I recommend your cell phone, and then you have a record of who the new residents are.
I would like to add one more word on behalf of Peggy. It is a new year, and we recommend that everyone updates their vial of life. So don't forget to do that on a yearly basis, and now is a good time to do it. Does anyone else have any question? It doesn't have to be related to anything that we talked about. Phyllis?
I have 2 points that are not on the agenda, and the timing was not good for that. As I was walking here, I saw that there's going to be a bakery sale for Caitlin, our nurse who got badly hurt. I urge everyone to skip their diet for the day, buy something tomorrow, and buy something and help Caitlin.
And donate.
I'm sorry, is there a question about that?
And donate. Money.
Oh, and donate. I'm sorry, I didn't read that. I didn't read the full thing, I guess.
No,
Yeah. But I think that's very important. And then, I think that's it, because I don't remember what the other thing was. But I may. Oh, I know. I think that we should say that there is money already decided for the play, and we don't have to worry about it. But I think that was an important thing to let the people know. We do have the money for the plays, so luckily, that's one factor that we have to be very comfortable with. Thank you.
Any other question, comments? Yes.
I just had one question referring to the budget Irwin mentioned in the beginning. It's coming back to me. I didn't understand one thing. If a committee doesn't use up all their money, it goes back into the general pool, you said, or it's part of their next year's?
If you don't spend all the money, you can't keep it. You can't carry it over and add to the budget. So if you had a budget of $1,000 and you spend $500, next year that 500 goes back in the pool, you get another 500, so you'd be back to 1,000.
That's urging expenses without thought? In other words, spend the money.
I'm not advising you one way or the other. I'm just telling you that if there's any money left over,
That's
it
how
comes
Congress
back
gets
next year.
new curtains all the time in their office.
I want to say something about that. The lecture committee, for instance, has $800. And that money is to pay not lecturers, because we don't pay lecturers, but it's to pay for transportation. If somebody's going to come from Boston, or if they're going to come from New York. And of course, this was more important before the days of Zoom, because now if you're in Boston, you can still give a lecture. But some years we use that, and then some years we don't. And so I think that's the way with every committee, that there'll be some times when they use that. I mean, we had a very small budget in the lecture committee, and then we asked for more. We said, because we're beginning to have lecturers say, well, I'll drive from Boston to New Haven, but then the mileage added up. So we were able to get them from $300 up to $800. But as a matter of fact, the pandemic came along, we've never spent the $800 again. I shouldn't tell him that, but
No, I just want to add that we get a very generous budget to support all of the committees and intergroups, thanks to Michael here. And so it's a budget that has never really been abused, and we spend most of it, and whatever's left over comes back to us the following year with the additional money, so we start out always with the top. So we should all be very happy that we're being supported in this way. None of us, the budgets are really quite adequate when they're not been given in a niggly sort of way. Okay.
Any comments whatsoever at all?
Well, I ended up here because I thought I had a class. In fact, I know I do have a class, but it must have been changed. But in any event, I'm going to take advantage of and ask my third question. And it involves the budget. And I can't get an answer to why although you did try to explain it to me, I couldn't understand what he told me. Because to me, it's an accounting question. Why the acquisition of the TV, what do you call it? What? Wi-Fi is on the budget list to be increased every year. We pay for it. Now, this was something that was acquired by Whitney Center, and it's hard for me really to understand how anything that's acquired by Whitney Center is on that category. And I've asked the person who prepared it, and he doesn't know, and he keeps telling me he's going to speak to someone who does know, but I never hear from that person. I'll refrain from adding an extra comment about that, but I just don't get it.
Well, who do you think could provide the answer to that? Oh, there he
Well,
is.
is it appropriate for me to?
Of course.
So I'm not quite sure what is your question. Why does the cost of the internet go up?
No. I mean, the cost, I assume, was set when it was acquired. And are you responding to me?
Well, I'm going to try to understand your question so we can provide you with an answer. So you're wondering why the cost of the internet service has gone up?
No.
I just want to be clear.
All I can tell you is that it was 37 last year every month, and I don't know, 37 what, I don't know, I assume dollars, but, and now it's 45 that we pay, the residents pay. Now, the typical thing that would go on there is if and we acquired it, the Whitney Center, whatever it is, it owns. The kind of thing that normally is on the kind of that you pass on to us is if some, I don't know, telephone company increases their rates, we have to pay that increase. We don't, and no one owns it that we're having to do with, so that's the typical thing, and I don't see how the Wi-Fi fits into that.
Okay. So I'll try to construct, I'll get a a good answer constructed for you, but I can tell you this, that our costs don't remain fixed. We own some equipment, but we subscribe to the service. The service changes their charges over time, so our cost goes up. In addition, we upgrade equipment over time. And so the cost of maintaining this goes up. It's not that we acquired it some years ago and then it stays static, we paid it off, and then forevermore we don't pay on it. So our costs increase. And as our costs increase, we have to pass that on. So that's,
Well, I think we only acquired it in the middle of last year, so it's hard for me to understand how that cost could have increased in less than 12 months.
well, what we acquired was not baked into the previous price. You see, we had to acquire a whole system to upgrade it for bandwidth, to make sure that we had the internet speeds to accommodate the growth in utilization of the internet across the campus. And really to get the Wi-Fi coverage to accommodate all of the devices that residents and staff are using, but on the resident side primarily. Okay, so I can see by your reaction that that's not satisfactory. I'll try to get a better breakdown on that for you, okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll wait for that, too.
Well, just to answer your comment, the comment that you made just now, we, Whitney Center and the Residence Council, we are all working, and Raphael, we're all working on improving the communication system within staff and residents. So hopefully soon, when you have a question, it will be answered as promptly as possible. I hope that puts your mind at rest on that topic. Any other questions at all? Now is the time, because otherwise we're going to adjourn the meeting. So, anything, Raphael? No, okay. So with this being said, our next Residence Council meeting will be in the CAC on April 11. We look forward to seeing you in the next town meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here.